Hello.
How's it going?
Hey, pretty good. I'm starting to cook over here, so I'll be kind of distracted.
Yeah, no worries, no worries. I literally just got home. We were dog sitting for some folks.
Oh, cool.
Okay, get some of this paperwork. So how you been?
Pretty good. Sort of.
You going to DrupalCon this year?
Yeah, hoping to. Yeah.
Right on, right on. You going in early or just going at the normal time?
To be honest, haven't really thought about it yet. I've
Right
had a
on.
slow start to the year. I'm, I don't know. I'm kind of up in the air. Dealing
Gotcha.
with some back pain. That's kind of my priority in life at the moment.
Oh, that sounds awful. Is it something that's troubled you for a while, or like from a injury or something like that?
Oh yeah, I crashed a bike doing the Seattle to Vancouver bike ride like in 2014, I think.
Oh wow, so 12 years already.
Yeah, I've had plenty of time where I should have done more about this, but I've always had jobs that are pretty demanding.
Like
But
demanding physically?
no, like mentally,
Oh
or
yeah.
of like, hey, you need to deliver this thing by this point in time, and in order to do
Yeah.
that, you must sit in this chair until it's done. And if my
Oh
back
yeah.
hurts, then it's like I have to choose between my career or my health.
Yeah, that's a really tough spot to be in. Does your work understand that you have an injury?
Well, so over the last year, I've been working on a contract with Cigna Health Insurance,
Okay.
and that was, I mean, it's sort of hourly, like I could back out, but I was kind of expecting it to be a short-term contract anyway, so I figured I'll just save some money while I'm on it, and then when they drop me, I'll be in the situation where I'm at now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well,
I'm currently working quarter time, so I have a lot of flexibility,
that's
but
good.
it's more of like, where do I go from here? How do I get my career back in order again?
Oh, for sure, for sure. Yeah, my not that everybody's pain is the same. It's certainly not. But my wife actually suffers from chronic pain and things like that. She can't sit for a long period of time. Like she has to very frequently get up out of her seat, move around, stretch, stuff like that. So it's one of those things that she's kind of integrated. But she does work full time. So like on those long grind days, it really takes its toll. We
Ah, it's
um
rough.
we have uh we have a hot tub that we want to get serviced, and maybe that will help at least some of it. Yeah.
That sounds like a good idea.
Does anything give you relief?
Um, Not sitting all day at my computer.
Good call.
It's a real like habit and routine change for me.
Yeah.
So I'm a heavy computer user.
Oh, for sure. I can understand that. I think a lot of us chose this career, which is not a bad choice. I don't think anybody should feel bad for that choice, but you don't know the sort of toll that it takes on your body just sitting in a chair.
Yeah, well, and I've also like ignored the pain until it started to cause some more cognitive effects to
Right.
like affect my mood and my mentality. And then it became a wake-up call of like, oh crap, what do I do?
That makes sense. That makes sense. Well, hopefully you find some relief. I I can't imagine that's a quick journey though.
Yep.
Just heard my wife drop
Well,
something.
take it as like a PSA for everyone else to do more stretching and get more exercise in.
Oh, for sure. We actually that's a good point. I can't meditate just because I can't really sit still, but what I have found that's really close to that and really helps when I'm sore is yoga. And it might not be for everyone, but couldn't recommend it enough if you haven't tried it.
Oh yeah, yeah. I've been off and on with yoga, and there's a yoga place around the corner from me.
Oh, very
I do
cool.
need to get back into it.
Yeah, I think oddly enough, my wife and I started with bedtime yoga just to kind of like stretch a little bit before bed and kind of unwind. And there's a YouTube channel with a lady named Adrian, I think. She has really good, easy guided sort of stuff.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting a good night's sleep is like a key part of it.
Oh, huge part of it. Hey Bernardo, how's it going? Just saw you popped in.
Hey, I'm doing good. Thought about stopping by and saying hi and just checking on you guys. Are you
Yeah,
guys going to DrupalCon Chicago?
I am not.
Yeah, planning on it. I just have to get it together.
I think it's mostly because I'm in Canada and I don't want to cross the US border.
That makes sense. That'll make it more challenging for sure.
Oh yeah.
Um, I've been in and out of Whistler, and it's been pretty nice.
Yeah.
Like
Just
going both ways. On the way back into the States, we had like the most delightful person.
oh, did you
Uh,
drive or did you fly?
we drove,
Okay,
and
okay.
my friend just married a Chinese national, and so she kind of hands her documents or paperwork out the window, and the guy's like, "Oh, hey, let me help you out here. Like, if you have a stapler, you can just cut out this little piece and staple it in your passport. You don't need to carry all these documents."
Oh, that's good.
And he even like, we're they're supposed to ask you what you're doing in the country, and he's like, "You guys look like you came from Whistler."
It's like written all over your face. How are the lift lines?
That was a good work trip because we went on a Tuesday, so it was like Tuesday through Friday. It's not too bad.
Right on. So since that question's rotating, who is going to DrupalCon this year?
I'll be there.
Yeah,
Ooh,
yeah.
me. Chad, we're only missing you.
Yeah. I've actually got a bunch of travel coming up too. So even if I weren't reluctant to cross the border, we're going to Mexico with ImageX in April. So that's we took a little extra time on both ends. So I'll be there from the 10th to the 20th, and then after that, I joined a company back in December, full time, called Megaport. And if you've never heard of them, they do network as a service. So basically, if you're Netflix and you want to spin up a ton of connections anywhere in the world, and then spin up some servers that connect to them, um, that's what they do, and they work really fast. But so nothing to do with Drupal whatsoever. Still part of the community, and they're based actually in Australia, and they have an employee retreat coming up in May. So I'll be going to Mexico, come home for 2 weeks, and then immediately turn around and go to Australia. So my wife wants to go with, so she's going with. She's like, screw it, that is a 15-hour flight. Let's stop through Fiji on the way home. So we're gonna spend a week in Fiji on the way home. I have not had a vacation like that in a while, so it'll be good. But yeah,
That's a pretty long flight. Hopefully, you get good neck pillows and all the accessories. Otherwise, yeah,
yeah. Well, neck pillows. Maybe bring some muscle relaxers with us, just because you get sore
for
sitting.
sure. Otherwise, you're gonna have to find a corner on the plane to do some yoga and be like, "Give me a minute."
For sure. That long of a flight, they should just do yoga sessions. Just have a part of the plane dedicated for it. But so for DrupalCon this year, for those that are going, is anybody speaking? Mike, you're speaking. Right on. What's your topic?
Just given the same thing I did at the Pacific Northwest Drupal Summit on headings.
Oh, nice, nice. Yeah, that was a really good session. I'm glad they took that one.
Yeah, I do. I'm going to probably dig into a bit more into Canvas since it's come along and maybe try to actually show some examples
That
in
makes sense.
practice. But yeah,
Right on. Anybody else?
I'm not sure how much I need to focus on like layout builder because I feel like anyone who's into like layout builder would be totally into Canvas now.
Yeah, yeah. The tides are changing, I guess.
I miss a lot about Layout Builder,
I mean, it's still there. You can still use it.
like placing fields in a layout.
Yeah, yeah. why can't you do that in Canvas?
because it's not ready yet.
Oh,
Like you literally can't render a con well, you have to like place a component and then pass in the field value as a prop. But there are some fields like social media links or like the iCal link that you have to do like a pile of tricks to get it into Canvas.
mm.
Yeah, I
It kind of
think
makes me wonder if we're kind of going away from field formatters and turning it into like a component that you would render with field data.
Well, here's the problem is that Canvas is an entirely new system, so we're just tacking on a completely different like system onto Drupal that has nothing to do with anything that's happened before. And it's a further step away from structured content and more towards
Right.
just another way to just throw content anywhere on a page and not really care about, the underlying data structures, which is
And
fine
there
if you're writing
was
like a blog, but like if you're actually or a marketing site, but if you're actually looking to, you know, yeah. Anyway, what are you saying?
same with that other Pierre behind and that other group behind Display Builder. And there's sort of some competing philosophies. Some of it was like Canvas is a bit too far out of Drupal's like native technology. Some of it is like it's a bit too disconnected from the structure. Um, but then there's like deeper philosophies around how to build design systems and implement them in Drupal that I thought has been a pretty interesting conversation. But it's hard to follow, I think. Like it's hard to get a complete picture of what the proposal differences are between Canvas versus Display Builder.
What
By
is
display
Display
builder,
Builder? Is Display Builder
you mean UI suite?
Yes, UI Suite and Display Builder is sort of like a extension to that, I think.
Yeah, it's there. It's all built with HTMX and calls all the Drupal APIs on the back end. So they actually built that rather quickly because everything it does is just calling a standardized Drupal API.
Right. And having just added HTMX, it seemed like the logical progression to what we had before. So to jump from a better layout builder into like a whole new React app is quite a leap.
That is true. Although UI suite, last time I saw it, has so many different options and things you can do in there that to train an editor to use it will take a while.
Well, it's not supposed to be for the editor to use it at that level. It's for you to build, you can click together a theme as a theme builder. Uh, because anything other than a really simple theme, you had to go custom, right? Um, And the whole point of the UI suite is you can now click together a bunch of that based on either a Bootstrap one or a Tailwind one or a USWS one. They're all ready to go. Um, so then they gave your display builder. Is that what they're calling it? Um,
Yeah.
these names are too sodding generic. Um,
Yeah.
and they built that quite quickly. That was the next part, and they've built a piece. I haven't actually seen it apart from what Pierre demoed in Atlanta last year.
I wonder if he's coming this year. I didn't see if he's scheduled to speak at
I'll
DrupalCon.
ask him.
I imagine
I
the
assume
agenda.
so. Seems they're normally quite heavy into pushing the UI suite stuff. Although I haven't been to the monthly meetings for the last couple of months. I normally turn up and listen to what they have to say.
Bernardo, it sounds like you were talking about the UI suite, like either Bootstrap or Daisy UI themes that are out there. So once I installed one of those, uh, like the UI suite thing is pretty cool because it takes all of the styles from let's say Bootstrap or Daisy UI and exposes those as like utilities that you could apply to components or sections in Layout Builder. The problem with the UI suite Daisy UI theme that I tried was that if you open up a block configuration, it would expose all of the style options that you had available. So there were like I don't know, 50 or 60 options per block, and it got way overwhelming.
Yeah, yeah. The way they've done it initially is they've shown everything, right? With the idea that eventually they'll whittle that down, hide the things
Yeah,
you don't need, and sort them out a bit better. Um, so what they I think basically what they're showing is everything is available, and they've just slapped it all on one page, right? The idea is they will sort all of that out later.
I
so
guess
I think what is often needed is there's all these like options with a theming or design system like that. Somebody needs to go in and think about what options they want to use for that project, because you don't really want to allow like infinite combinations of all of these things. It would be good to say like, hey, we've got this background color, and if you're using that, here's the foreground color for it, and provide like three or four different swatches and components that can sort of recolor themselves based on the context that they're in.
Yeah,
But what I'm
that's what.
getting at is like, I think it would be good to like for a dev to have that full exposure to all the options, but then an interface where they can create components where the client only sees like that like refined thing for them that like limits the options that they want to provide to them.
Yeah, they said they're going to do that. They just haven't got around to it. Right?
Yeah. Yeah, they
They
have the styles API ticket where they're proposing all this stuff. And it's really fascinating because they're talking about like being able to put in restrictions in a style to allow or disallow it from being combined with other styles.
two different perspectives. Canvas is maybe doing a little too little, and UI Suite is doing too much.
I'm also kind of curious about people's take on Tailwind.
Oh, hate it. You can go jump in a lake.
if you're not using Tailwind, you're wasting your time, in my opinion.
Oh,
The
Ooh,
front
this will
end
be a conversation.
designers that are the greatest thing is you go, oh, that's great. View source, copy paste. Mine looks the same. Yeah, you can't beat that.
yeah,
Where
You
are
but
just
you copying
can't.
and pasting from? Like other Tailwind
Another Tailwind
component
thing you
libraries?
found, right? You just
yeah,
copy
but like, if we're going to use utility classes that specify exactly what they do inside of like the HTML element, like
separation of
why did we
concerns.
invent CSS in the first place and not just, stick to like, we used to specify the colors of things in the HTML elements themselves. You want a table instead of background
You're
color?
just
You
going to
just
have to realize that utility won. It absolutely won for practical reasons, right? Um, it just has,
Well,
right? And if you ask AI
I
to
don't
build
know.
anything, it'll always build it with Tailwind.
It successfully created a hot debate. I don't know if it's game over one. I have annoyances either way.
Oh,
When I
sure.
see
Nothing's perfect,
like 20 utility classes on a div, that annoys me.
but your ID is going to hide the things you've got things to sort all of that, right? Um, but the thing is, I can interactively play with it. This separation of concerns and reusable CSS was always bullshit, and it is bullshit, right? No one ever reuses CSS. From one project to another, it just doesn't happen.
yeah, we have
Um,
a starter theme that we use for all of our stuff, and then anything we so I mean a lot of our themes all share the same underlying code base.
yeah, but then
That's
Same
the
can't
direction I
basic
prefer to go
styles.
in.
but people don't write a bunch. I mean, you might see a bit of it more now with single directory components, but a lot of what they preached for original CSS and how you're supposed to separate concerns and keep the things out and do all, you know, it just made it overly complex. A lot of CSS files ended up as I can add to CSS, but I can't remove anything because I don't know where any of this is used, right? So it became ball of mud thing. When you've
I
got a ball
feel
of mud,
like
all you can do is add more mud to the ball. Um,
uh,
I've got Tailwind projects where my CSS file is 3 lines, right? You can't beat that. That's just
Well,
that is code I don't look after. Every line of code you write, whether it's CSS or anything, is is future technical debt to your future self. And
okay, let me put
CSS
it
technical
my
debt compounds really fast, right?
my
You have to look
bigger
after it really carefully. Get multiple people touching it, and suddenly it's all over the place, right? And at that point, you can't touch it. It becomes one of those things. I can't touch that because if I touch too much of this, it'll break, and it'll break in interesting ways that I don't see for 2 weeks because it's hidden somewhere else. And Tailwind doesn't suffer from that at all. So a
See,
lot
here's
of
the
the
thing. Here's the thing is like just today, we had a design review of a site, and the designer said, "Hey, this, there's not enough separation between the different sections. So what we need to do is we need to make all the sections on the site farther apart from each other." And I just have a variable in CSS called section spacing, and I just change one value and propagates the entire site. Whereas if you've used Tailwind to set like margin medium all over everywhere or something like that, you'd have to
yeah,
edit
yeah.
every one of
If
those
you can
files.
always do it
I agree
badly,
with that.
but that's not how you're actually going to do it,
Well,
right?
no, it's not badly. It was like you can't plan for that scenario if you're using arbitrary spacing values as utility classes instead of using a class name.
Yeah, I mean, like, things need to be semantic. Like there's no semantics with like, utility classes. Just like what we were saying about, you know, with when we have components, we're going to be doing components and they have different styles and stuff. Like, the only options that we're going to be giving to our users, ideally, is like semantic ones where it's like, a hero, and then this is like a featured hero or something like that. And by switching it to feature, the colors change. We're not going to let them set the individual colors. We're going to force the designers to say why their things are specific colors, which a whole thing getting them to do that. But, and once we do that, we're going to configure our components to only, allow semantic changes between them rather than arbitrary like margins and colors and things like that.
So I see that for spacing, and yet for things like flex, sometimes you just want to flex this little component of this section, and then you have to define a new set of classes for that specifically, or reuse something else. So then at that point, I'm like, well, the token be nice. But I see what you're saying. I mean, CSS variables, if you use them correctly, they provide you with a cohesive system that works well. But then when you have to flex something a little or just change something within the text, then tokens tend to be a faster approach sometimes.
I like a hybrid. If you take a look at the Daisy UI component library, I think it's a good example of how to do Tailwind the right way.
Oh yeah,
Where
yeah.
if
You
you've
don't
got,
do Tailwind all on your own. There are component libraries out there to do it for you, right? If you try and hodgepodge stuff together, um, you're going to end up you're going to make all the beginner mistakes, right?
yeah, but they don't have layout stuff in the Daisy UI like examples.
Yeah.
A lot of
It's
CSS is about laying out things.
well, yeah, and styling them. No,
Yeah.
you're right, you're right. Like I feel like layout is a hard problem that is easy to get wrong when you're doing things from scratch on your own.
Yeah, I've been using Flowbyte recently for a project I'm working on at work that I like a lot. Component, like it's like Daisy UI, but it has like grid examples and stuff. It's pretty.
Does that one have
Yeah,
Alpine in it?
That sounds familiar. It might.
probably. I use Alpine.
Alpine's cool.
Also,
Okay.
Shad CN seems to have grabbed a huge chunk of the what people talk about, right? Because as a way to do that as well. So the
Did you
Laravel guys love that.
did you know Shad is a Drupal guy?
Yeah, he's a Drupal guy. Yeah.
I feel so proud to like have him in our camp.
Is anybody still in contact with him?
I think he's still he's an ex-Drupal guy now, effectively, right? Because he's making money doing this instead.
I think
Probably.
he's working for Vercel now, right? Was it Vercel?
That would make sense.
I mean, it'd be great to see him around, kind of like Jeff Garling, if we could convince them to come back to any of the camps and do a couple of sessions and be like, oh, look at that.
Help us revitalize our front end.
Or heckle us, either one. Yeah, they
Oh
will
yeah.
both be good.
Should get the HTMX guy in too.
Yeah, I've been singing the praises of HTMX for the last few years, and suddenly it's like, oh, it's in core, finally. Um, yeah, a lot of the times when people break out to, when what I say is, people breaking out to React and things, like, oh, now we have overly complicated our front end. Um,
Right.
Whereas HTMX is probably good for 90% of that to give you that reactivity. At certain points where you really do need that super duper interactivity that React gives you, that's worth going down that path then. But I remember being shown like this is a fully decoupled React site, and it was a government site, and I'm like, that could have just been Twig. There's nothing
Yeah.
special in that at all. You've literally built a decoupled site just for the sake of it, um, and lost everything that you lose everything. You have to implement everything yourself now. Um, and it wasn't, it just looked like a government site, a nice looking government site. Um, But I was like, why are you using React for that? And like, oh, they wanted decoupled. Like, why did they want decoupled? Because it's a buzzword. And you're like,
It was going to make front end easier.
yeah. Well, this is the thing I also hate. Basically, AI is really good at React as well, right? Because there's so much of it out there, especially the beginner stuff. So the guys that became React developers rather than JavaScript guys that don't know anything else but React, I would say they're the first people gone because AI will absolutely replace them. Because you put all your eggs in one basket for that. Um, yeah, there's a whole. There was DHH said about Amazon Web Services and things when they got really expensive and complicated that they're merchants of complexity is the term he used, and I thought that's fantastic. That's 90% of what React is. It's a merchant of complexity for no gain. Um, that
There is one gain. It's the
oh, there are
composition of components.
sure
When you're,
components, but we have components now, right? We're catching up,
yeah,
kind of thing. So
well, we're catching up, but our component rendering was sort of inverted from like I think for junior devs looking at React components, it made more sense to them about how the application architecture was structured. Whereas a new front-end developer in Drupal is like, how the heck is stuff rendering and where are these templates coming from?
oh yeah, yeah. We've all been through that ringer and out the other end, right? So we kind of understand how all of that works mostly.
And we don't want to change.
Well, the fact that they are on, what is it? They just had to rebuild. Um, Evan You decided that they need a better JavaScript build thing, so now we're doing the Vite tooling to make it all better, and we're trying to standardize on one instead of how many have we had? Um, I was reading that people moved to Vite and went, "Oh, it's fantastic. Our front end build is down to 3 minutes." And you're like,
Oh
I'm sorry,
God,
what?
what?
Your front end build is down to 3 minutes? What was it before? Before Vite, they were like 24. I'm
That's
sorry, 24
fucked.
minute build?
What?
What are you doing?
What?
Well, exactly. You're like, well, you've got like Vite isn't your problem. You've got mountains of problems there you're not even looking at. Um, like someone had to build a system that went faster because the build got slower.
Well,
And you-
yeah.
and you're like, what? I mean, I never had it fully explained to me, but I'm like, what are you guys doing?
Hey, well, one thing I've been using Vite for a couple of years. One thing I noticed is that we're not building a JavaScript application. We're just building CSS. So typically with Vite for Drupal themes, it's like lightning fast.
Yeah, yeah. And the hot module reloading stuff is fantastic.
Well, that's actually a big topic for me. So what I found with so I was using Vite with Uno CSS, which is essentially Tailwind, but slightly different, a little bit more like programmatic. Um, and what I really loved was having the Vite dev mode on, which would let me make changes in the CSS and see them instantly on my in my site. But I couldn't do that with Twig files because if I make a change in Twig, so if you're building a
You
React
have to,
application and you're using Vite, it will recompile your application, your JavaScript, and it will re-render the component as hot reloaded. But it can't do that for Twig in a Drupal site.
I want to say
So,
mine is doing that.
huh?
You can tell Veet what to watch, right, to rebuild it in the config file. You have to tell it to watch your twig files. It's a
But
bit like
can
in
it
Laravel, I
replace
have to
it?
tell it to watch my blade files.
Oh no, I mean it's watching the files, but if I make a change, it reloads the page.
Oh, I'm not entirely sure I've noticed that. It might just do a whole page reload.
Well, so what I'm getting at is like that's how it works. So if I'm adding Tailwind classes to my templates, every time I make a change, I have to watch the page reload. If I do all my work in CSS, every time I make a change, it is literally instant. So, and I can get the best of both worlds by using apply. So I apply Tailwind classes in my CSS and I get both. And that
And
way, if I want to come up with a utility, I can add a utility class through Uno CSS and then use that just like another Tailwind class. Like if I want to come up with card or section or something like that.
I was pretty sure that Beat could check your twig files and update based on that as well without having to just use
Yeah, I
apply.
think, but what it's saying is the whole page reloads rather than just it does the hot module reloading.
Yeah, if it could reload the
Right.
component, and I'm sure there's a way to make that happen, like Vite could have Drupal render the component in the back end and replace the component on the page without reloading the whole page. That's what I want to have happen. And we're not too far from that, but there's some library that's needed to make that happen. Because, and maybe HTMX could be the solution because if you could, I don't know. It's kind of how Drupal renders stuff. Like you can't render a component in isolation without developing a page that renders the component in isolation. But if you could use HTMX to load the whole page that that component is rendered on, grab the HTML for the component, and then hot swap it in the page that you're looking at. But I don't know if that would be, you'd still have to render it. So I don't know if it would be as fast as updating the CSS.
Have you guys tried building new Drupal sites lately with Drupal Canvas in mind or anything like that?
Yes. Yeah, I'm working on one for a radio station. And our plan was to basically like spin up the Drupal CMS with either Byte or the Mercury starter theme and just kind of let the client start creating content in it. And we've run into a number of just like little confusing things. I mean, it's coming along. We're probably about to expose it to the client and let them start entering content. But just a number of crazy limitations in Canvas that aren't explained up front. Things like how you uh, do the layout for a display mode. There are examples in Drupal CMS where like the blog has a card display mode, and that's shown in a view. But then if you want to come up with your own content type and come up with a display mode for it, we had to like hack the configuration. Like we had to copy the file for one of the other display mode overrides and like kind of shim our own content type into that and import that config, and then it would work. Or running into things like we can't render fields, or things like multi-value fields are hard to work with. Um, there's so many limitations that we've been running into. But not to complain, I know it's new software. Just kind of hoping that we would have something that we could hand over to a client and they'd be like, "Thank you for giving this to me. I'm so happy with my web developer like page builder." But I just don't think we're there right now.
The pigs are flying.
So I guess as a retrospective, um, we had Starshot as an initiative that was what, a year and a half ago that kind of started. Maybe my
Mm.
timeline's wrong. We were trying to move really fast with something that would compete with arguably WordPress with Gutenberg, or even something faster like Wix and Squarespace.
Hmm.
It still seems like we're not significantly closer to that vision. And I don't want to poo it. I mean, I'm looking at this as, if Drupal needs something to survive in the current ecosystem, it seems like the right direction on paper.
Well, I mean, I think the problem is instead of like being the best CMS for structured content, we're just being like, oh no, no one wants structured content. They just want to throw everything everywhere. So we're just going to go do that instead of like, making our niche better
Right.
and convincing people that, hey, maybe you would like to structure your content. Maybe
I
it makes
agree with
sense to
that.
have like fields and stuff like that and not just randomly add like, the same component again and again on every page instead of having just like a field.
Well, on top of that, like
Yeah.
the Canvas UI isn't really the best, like let's play with design and play with components kind of experience because like if I'm working on my computer with like a Tailwind project, I can see updates quicker than if I'm working in the Canvas UI where like if I change component code, it's this awkward reload period.
But Canvas is not is really supposed to be used. You've already got your components, you're whacking them on a page. You can edit the components in it and do things, but really it's a layout tool, right, for landing pages. Um, and that's a thing that interestingly, people buy and throw things on a page because they think about landing pages, right? Um,
I
but
feel like a good set
Unfortunately,
of components in Layout Builder would have been just as good.
sure, I
And
use
before
Layout
that, we
Builder for a
had
ton of stuff.
paragraphs. Before that, we had CCAT editors. Like we've had solutions in the past. We just haven't had good off-the-shelf options. I think that's still what we're hunting for. Like we can give us the Canvas UI, but if you still have to create your own theme from scratch on your own, like it's still a hard problem.
Yeah. The
Maybe DripYard type themes will be a solution.
Oh yeah, his themes are great.
Yeah, I've been using one for a side project, and it definitely simplifies the amount of work and energy you have to put into developing the components and making sure they work and then you keep them up to date with all the changes that Canvas has. I know the experience out of core, we were talking with a couple of people in Florida, is not ideal right now with Mercury and Byte, because Mercury and Byte I feel like need a lot of love to actually um, show up to people the power that Canvas has at the moment. I don't know that they've been doing a great job at keeping up with that. But if you guys have tried a Trip Your Theme, that is definitely, if you haven't, you should probably at some point try it, whether that is with your company or why not. And the only reason why I say this is because I have two of them, but like they make the experience so much easier and so much nicer out of the box. Then at that point, you're like, okay, well, Canvas has a couple of kinks, but you can work around them, especially for like small businesses and the market that Drupal is trying to pursue, which seems to me be like hobbies and stuff that developers um, can apply it to going back to the friends and family and like this project that is pro bono but might be able to barely pay for infrastructure, but let me do it in Drupal because they will enjoy it and why not, and then just planting the seeds of Drupal here and there. Um, for that purpose, I think it's great. It's
I'm not
unfortunate
sure we're
that
going
back.
that low down the market, are we? Because we're all way up at enterprise. I think the idea of that is to go back into the middling again, rather than go to the really shallow end of the pool.
But
Because
I think
yeah,
that's
I
the
don't want
rub,
to play
though.
down there. They've got no money.
I think that's the rub, though, Lee, is like, if we look at ancestral Drupal, it started off really small, and it's really moved around up up to the enterprise level. Arguably around Drupal 8, it
it
started to
has
really
been pushed to the
skyrocket.
enterprise level
Yeah,
again and again and again at every DrupalCon in every Dries note.
and it
I don't know.
alienates
I
the
feel like that
smaller
was a natural
users.
progression. I feel like we are more of a natural fit for enterprise than we are for small business.
Well,
Yeah.
I think that's the core of the issue is use cases for software. Like if they get too broad, then it gets too generalized and it just kind of fizzles out. It's trying to do way too much. Um, which that's fine if that's what it wants to do and can bankroll it, but this is open source. There is no
Well, I think the future of Acquia is tied to Canvas.
yeah.
They
And
took
that
all
Well,
that
and
money.
Acquia Site Studio is a whole new product, and I wonder like how that's gonna unfold.
I can't imagine using Canvas for an actual like enterprise level site. Like, I mean, the problem with Canvas is it's not a layout system, it's a layout and content storage system. Like when you're adding content to the page, it's just adding it in Canvas and saving it in Canvas. And like that's not the best place for storing, data. That's not the best
Right.
place for storing content. And
It's
like,
more like marketing
I don't
pages.
think as Canvas
yeah.
is somewhere to put content like that, especially structured data. I mean, it's really like build the landing pages fast, make them look pretty, give
Yeah.
them something they like, use the
That could have been a whole separate product. Like, what does Drupal have to
yeah
do with this?
Yeah,
yeah.
that's it could be we could call it WordPress or something.
Well, I mean, when I think when I first started off looking at CMSs back in, I don't know, 2008, something like that, there were so many. And everybody was like home brewing them because, again, it was just very narrow cases that they were trying to accommodate. And Drupal had a really good value proposition back then to really kind of wrangle some of that. It wasn't the only solution, but it was one that was getting a lot of popularity. When we looked at that Starshot initiative, the shift over from hey, let's cater to a bunch of open source developers was let's take a look at a new audience segment with CMOs, like people who aren't really technical. And I feel like it begs the question: how close are we to that goal of allowing someone who is really focused on marketing sites to spin up a Drupal
Yeah.
site today?
Oh man. Yeah. And so I compared this UI to something more like Webflow. And that's not a tool for marketers. That's a tool for designers.
I mean, I feel like marketers could use Canvas to create like a, quick landing page. I don't, I mean,
I think
theoretically,
it could be
people shouldn't be
streamlined
designing stuff in
further.
Canvas. Theoretically, they should just be placing stuff in Canvas.
Yeah, that's the
Um,
whole point of it, I think.
yeah,
Well,
so I
then we need
mean,
more polished stuff to put to make available to Canvas.
Yeah, which is why you buy your Dripyard themes.
Okay, fair enough.
Because for $500, you're 90% of the way there, kind of thing. It's yeah.
So I wonder how Drupal 7 became so popular because you had to do a lot of things, but it seems like everybody back in the Drupal 7 days did websites for fun on the side and tossed them left and right. They just gave Drupal 7 to everything and anything. It was the answer for any project you were doing. There was no WordPress, there were no Joomla, it was all Drupal 7. It didn't matter it was your hobby or your side project. What made it so Drupal 7, I mean, developers back in the day were so passionate about it? Because it had
Look,
its challenges.
I can speak to that. I mean, I graduated in 2010, so I was kind of looking at CMS solutions around like 2009, a little bit before then. And so I was comparing Drupal to WordPress and Cake PHP, maybe a couple of others. And like what Chad was saying, like out of the box, the content modeling for Drupal totally made sense to me. And it was like, if I want to write custom HTML and like learn web development, I'll just do full HTML in a node body and just learn through that. And I can learn theming by doing CSS. But like the content modeling was the core thing for me, where it was like, I get this. I'm specifying my parameters for the database, and I get a form for content entry, and I get a display for that. Love this. I can definitely grow from here.
So I saw Drupal 7 around 2012, 2013, and it was very slow out of the box. And I know that's something that they changed to kind of like improve that image, but like compared to anything else, when I was getting close to graduating and whatnot, I was like, what is this? Like just the page load was something else. You just having Bartik still. And then you didn't use object-oriented programming, which if anybody was coming out of computer science, that was like, oh no, I'm using a retro system. So
Well, the
what
problem is, yeah, I mean, the problem is that now you need an engineering degree in order to like, do any back end coding with Drupal. Like, all of the hobbyists who just, PHP was very loose and things were very easy just to sort of hack and like the hook system, it's like the system's doing something, oh, I just use a hook and I can just like mess with any of these like arrays and change what's on the thing, and it was just like very accessible. And
yeah.
now you need to know how to create a controller factory to you know build random things.
That's why
Yeah, that's
the
not a day
backdrop came
one
out.
task though. I mean, you're kind of right, but like you can
Yeah,
still
no,
work with the easy parts.
and I'll say it like the move to Twig was amazing. Like Twig is fantastic, and the like theming is so much easier in Drupal 8. And or I mean, why did we not just call it Drupal Symphony rather than Drupal 8?
Hmm.
Because
because
now
people always
it's
pick terrible names,
yeah, but I
right?
mean now we've traumatized all these like people who've upgraded the Drupal 7 site, so now it's like, oh my God, we've got to go from Drupal 10 to Drupal 11. Let's set aside half of our yearly budget for it. And I'm like, no, no, it's not the same as like the 7 to 8. Like, we could do it in like 10 hours at most.
And surprisingly, once 8, 9, and 10 came in, nobody's using Drupal for their hobbies and side projects because every other professional Drupal developer I ask, and I'd be like, well, you have Composer now, you have Twig, you have everything. Are you using it for something new? Nope. Everybody's just holding it for their job, and jobs are disappearing. So it's not a good.
What are they using
I
instead?
am I'm using Drupal as an application development environment, and I'm building out several different concepts that I've been playing around with it for the past couple of years. I don't know if it's a good idea. It's kind of experimental. But
Well,
I'm kind of thinking in lines of like the site templates and the site template marketplace. So I'm thinking
yeah,
about if I could come up with like starter positions for certain types of applications, I think that would be very useful.
yeah, the site template thing might restart all of that, and then you can kind of buy your way into a huge, buy the theme for $500, buy a couple of site templates, sort of be there, right, and done it like really cheaply. Um, so I can see that possibly being a big thing. I can also see it another thing that we threw at the wall and didn't stick. So,
Well, I feel like we either stick to what we've been doing or we throw more stuff at the wall and see what sticks.
oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I imagine the big thing right now is just growing the market share, right? Even if it is smaller projects, some of those projects are gonna grow and they're gonna need support and they're gonna need developers if they provide enough value for whichever company or whichever use case they are using it for. And if people in smaller companies and in smaller use cases can actually build something with it, then it's gonna come back, building the forest back, which is what the agencies, Acquia, and a bunch of the bigger players have. I mean, they're running out of customers. So the problem is people are not planting any Drupal sites, and some grow to be bigger and medium-sized sites. But if those don't grow up, then they be out of the market.
That's true. Well, and like the alternative is like back to the other JavaScript stack applications. So it kind of comes like, and is this one technology is better than the other, or is this more of like a sales issue?
Well, you've only got to look at like WordPress. You can see it's a sales issue, right? Because a lot of things we're complaining at are, WordPress is still, you can't install it with a composer. That's not modern in any way, shape, or form. But it's still because it has, a page builder and it's got some things you can throw at it and you can buy just the things to get it working. There's a surprising amount of sites like that.
I mean, I think the whole Canvas thing sort of hits on a problem, even though I don't think it's the right solution. And that is that the content editing experience is always an afterthought on a Drupal project, even for like agencies. It's like, you get your designs and you build the whole front end theme and blah 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 blah. And, at the end of
Yeah,
it,
that's
you're just
true.
like, oh yeah, and then we'll just throw these on the form and like don't even bother like putting the fields in the right order that makes sense or providing any sort of like previews or just yeah, I mean just so every time people are like, I hate Drupal, and it's like, no, it's just that no one ever like thought about the content editing experience and made that make sense for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When the project was spec'd out, there was no money put in for that bit, right? Or if you did,
Yeah.
they chopped it out to save money.
That's
Well,
usually
it's
the
Yeah.
it's
first
also like
thing.
a quality of developer thing. Like anytime I make a content type, I'm thinking about the content entry. So I try and reorder the entry form to make it make sense as much as possible.
Yeah,
And
I would.
there's a lot, that could be an issue in any development team, not just Drupal, but getting, this endless stream of junior developers to like learn best practices and put them into place is always going to be a hard problem.
Yeah. A lot of times I would use spreadsheets just to define all content types, tax, pretty much any entity with a field to hide to not only have a good acceptance criteria, testable thing, but also to emphasize what you're talking about. What does this
Uh,
form look like? And then you would also try to map that to a design concept. Say, here's where this field goes. Kind of like sketch that out on annotations or whatnot. So that then there's no dispute as to what goes where, how it's rendered, especially in different view modes as you kind of depict things. And as we come up with these new tools, that's still a useful practice. Um, I don't know if all, especially agencies, really do that. I don't know if they necessarily have time or budget or even the experience to do it.
That's what I
I've
was gonna say. I think it's a time and budget thing.
Yeah,
I think it's definitely best practice, but
there's a
if you
maturity
don't,
factor, but yeah,
that's it. Yeah. Well, it's kind of a combination of budget and maturity.
yeah,
Also,
yeah,
what the client's currently complaining at to be done, right? There's what they prioritize is almost never that, right?
but
Of what gets done. So they burn through the budget and time and hours on things that are on the front,
yeah,
and they don't think about the poor guy inputting it until it's suddenly dropped in their hands. And
but
yeah, I always try and build them as best as I can,
isn't
but
some of this the again, I use this word a lot. Isn't some of this the value proposition of things like recipes, where you try to get it right the first time, and then it
yeah,
becomes a repeatable, modifiable thing where you inject those best practices and those good user experiences, not just the end user experience, but also the admin, the content manager, or whatever you want to call it. That experience has to
100%.
be really thought
yeah,
about.
Yeah, 100%. I want to see more conversations across the board of like, here's a proposal for a recipe. Here's what I thought would be good. And then a response to
Yeah,
that where people kind of provide their feedback. And like, I really want to get us to a point where we have like refined solutions that we want to reuse.
yeah.
yeah.
And
That's what I think like I said, what I think recipes are aiming at. Now, hopefully we get there, right? Because as soon as saw them, I was like, oh yeah, I can see how this is going to be fantastic. It's going to speed everything up. We can do a whole, and I'm not sure we're there yet, but I still hold out hope that it's going to do exactly what you said, Chad.
and and there the value proposition, the tool is there, the value proposition is there, but I also think that there's a lot of complexity that I think the human brain likes to grossly simplify things because it's easier to understand and communicate, but some things truly are complex. Like as soon as you start talking to people about one content type referencing another, like how does that relationship play out across multiple things, or how are dates handled? Just even cracking open that can of worms of how dates are being handled in various places, you really have to give that sort of stuff a lot of thought way ahead of time in the initial information architecture, even after you cover things from a you know thoughtful place. That's current state. That's like, here's my intention, here's how it should work, and you launch it, you're proud of it. Everybody who uses it is super proud of what it is that they can do in theory. If everybody does a great job, but that is a moment in time. As soon as somebody says, "Hey, can you just change this one thing?" That's when the duct tape starts coming out, and you might have people who were not part of that original team making modifications with not necessarily the same intentions. They're given shoestring budgets to make alterations.
Yeah, yeah. I used to work with a lot of, well, my degree's in electronics. I used to work, but I've done software since I graduated.
Yeah,
But I used to work with a lot of electronic engineers designing custom boards for post-production film work. And they had a rule which was, they'd lay out multi-layer boards and get them manufactured, and then they'd have to put green string in, right? So they'd realize that the tracks weren't right, so they'd actually put green string on. And I think the rule was once you had 8 pieces of green string on a board, you had to redo the board. And I remember looking at them going, it's a good job we don't look at software because software's like 100% green strings.
Oh,
And like they had to redo the entire, relay out the board and remanufacture them,
wow.
basically. Because it was,
But
we were going through prototypes and things. So
but you're illustrating something that is a practice that was learned over time. If we don't have some safeguards in place as things evolve, as things, heavy quotes, improve, you start to accumulate our favorite word, technical debt, or just cruft or garbage. So
yeah,
there are mechanisms we can put in place, and I've been with agencies who do have some of those safeguards in place, and they're like, look, we cost more because our quality's high. You you can pick cheap, you can pick fast, or you can pick quality, but you can't have all three unless you've really got the budget for it. And a lot of people just make a sacrifice in one place or another, and it's quite often quality.
well, I
hmm.
always say with that triangle thing, they've always said,
Yeah,
pick two out of three. But I think the reality is pick one,
yeah,
and the one is always price,
yeah.
right? They're
That's
always
always number
almost
one.
always fixed on price.
There are a
And
handful
so,
that are otherwise, but it's rare. But I as an engineer, as a solutions architect, as a business analyst, all these hats that I've worn over time, I've been part of the sales process. I've been part of the, like, that discovery team. The warning that I give right up front is, if you're going to start getting cheap now, wait until we're going through the UAT process when you're getting desperate for cutting things because you're scrambling to prioritize the things that are most important to you to address, knowing full well some of these other things you won't. Instead, let's try to focus on what are the minimal things you need to produce. Like if you have all these content types, what's the one content type that's the most important? Let's get that right. And then build the next thing and the next thing. Because if you start feature shopping, you've already blown your budget before you've even started. And it's not like a NASA budget sort of thing where things double over the course of years. This is, I think people don't understand the cost of the things that they're asking for, whether it's Drupal or not.
yeah.
Hmm.
And also normally when I'm talking to potential new clients, um, what I point out is you're paying me to be really pedantic, and
Yeah,
and you see what I call the rainbow road through it. Like we're going to go this, and it's going to be golden and magical, and there's going to be unicorns, and it'll be fantastic at the end. And it's like, yeah, but
yeah,
people, if you've seen your users,
yeah,
people try to check out without putting anything in their cart. People try to do the most insane order of things, and that's just normal. Um, and reality, most of the clients have also probably only really thought about 50% of what it is actually going to be. They haven't actually put thought into how, feature A and feature B interact.
yeah.
Um, and what happens if we don't do that? What happens if they skip that? Um,
So I wonder what will it take to get the developers in the Drupal community excited on it back as they were in the Drupal 7 days to go out and tell everybody about it and go to different meetups and share and go to different companies and share about it because that's something I've seen in the Laravel community. We've been to a couple of Laracons, and don't get me wrong, they have a lot of great things over at Laravel, but they are not uniquely great. One of the biggest things that they sell you with the whole framework and the documentation and whatnot is their hype. the energy levels because they are ready to tell you why it's cool, why it's great, and why not. And I see that that's not something has been happening outside of maybe core contributors and why not the community. And Drupal seems a little tired nowadays. And I don't know, maybe what's the change from 7 to 8 and why not? What do you guys think will help energize the developers so they'll be like, okay, well, I'm gonna use Drupal for this or that, or let me try to promote that for this
We're
side
all
project.
older and jaded and just want to get paid. I think that's the problem.
Well, I mean,
And
think about what excited you when you first got started with a lot of these things. And it might be a little bit different for a lot of people, but to your point, Drupal 7 and even earlier was accessible to developers. And I think that's what tended to excite folks is I can get in there, I can play around with it, and I can see the results. And things have gotten so complicated that it's really hard to do that. So I think and I want to kick myself in my own ass for saying this as the answer for present tense, like what would get people interested in things like Drupal, not just Drupal, but things like it, is tools to bring that excitement back. This idea that you can tinker, this idea that you can produce something, and right now, doing that by yourself is really challenging. That's why a lot of people are using things like Claude Code and whatnot. I'm not saying that is my favorite answer, but I think that is what is helping to excite people playing around with literally anything development wise is getting over that enormous hurdle of just trying to learn and play and see the results.
Well, and another question is, are there limitations to the technical architecture of Drupal versus a React or JavaScript front end framework, where there is like because everything is server-side rendered in Drupal, there are actual limitations in the type of applications we can develop.
Yeah.
I mean, you can always do the decoupled where you just use Drupal's APIs to serve up the content. I mean, that's always been a thing. Um, yeah, I don't know. Honestly, I'm surprised more people don't do that just because Drupal does have a great way to just like build the content structure and the content architecture and then allow people to edit it and then you just feed that out over an API and it's not a big deal. But I guess, yeah, I don't know. It's
Well,
like I feel like
you're right. And someone came to the Drupal Seattle meetup, kind of asking for help, and he's not a Drupal person, but wants to make a headless application and recognize that Drupal would be good for the data modeling and the content storage.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine
Um,
turning up and saying, I want to make a headless application with Drupal. Ah, by the way, I'm not a programmer. Like,
but
well,
then I was
I want
like,
a
hey,
pony.
there's this thing called Canvas. Why don't we just use that for your visual page builder, and then we'll just keep it all in Drupal? It was like, yeah, but I have a React team in India, so let's just do that.
Well, I think that's part of the problem was React sort of caught up. It got the JavaScript hype cycle went through it. Everyone just jumped onto the React thing. And I think part of it is definitely that the problem with that, right? Everyone, like I said, people are React developers, not JavaScript developers. Um, and it's a weird thing. The
Well,
boot camps cropped up just to teach people React in 3 months and things, and then because they could pop out the other end and might get a job that at least paid them 90K and things, which was a huge upgrade for them. But people have gone into. I talk to JavaScript guys, and I'm like, "What other language do you program in?" And the answer, 9 times out
TypeScript.
of 10 is, "I don't know anything other than JavaScript." And you're like, "You understand you're supposed to learn a language a year, right?"
Wait, you
You d
are?
Yeah,
I'm about 17 languages behind in my profession.
you
Yeah.
don't necessarily
Uh,
have to produce anything with it, right? But that was the languages have gone a bit nuts recently, right? But you should pick up new languages and play with them, even if you don't, just for yourself, right? It teaches you concepts, you see new stuff. I mean, we've been playing with Elixir and like I've done Erlang before and Elixir's like outrage. Like how certain things are done in Elixir is like, why isn't everything like this? Like Elixir, the way it works is it's fault tolerant. So if anything fails, it knows the area. It'll shut everything down and start it all back up again, so it carries on and leaves logs for you, right? Because it's designed for telephony switches, and you can't have like one thing go wrong, stop 20,000 people going across a switch. So it does basically what Kubernetes does, right? But it's built into the language.
Wait, are you saying there's a language out there that if you get one semicolon wrong, it doesn't take down your entire site?
Exactly, yeah.
Oh my God, that's crazy.
They and it's well, also we have did you ever guys see that I think it was called Seven Languages in 7 Weeks? It was an O'Reilly book, and then there was seven more languages in 7 weeks. Bruce Perrins did it. He actually lives here in Chattanooga, and he's the Elixir guy, right? People come all over the world to see him. Um, and we went and chatted to him, and he was showing us Elixir and how got the Beam. It's called the Beam VM works, and it's super interesting. Like so different to everything else. I would recommend like just finding some stuff, reading a bit about it, and going, oh, that's like it's so different to everything else. Um, it's really quite clever. And some massive sites run it. Like all of the streaming from the BBC is all done from Elixir. Um, without having to resort to these massive microservice things or it's very interesting. It's like Drupal. It's an undersung hero of stuff that it does well, right? And I think that's part of what it appealed to me as well, is because like there's a small group of people absolutely love this. And I immediately saw the value in it and started tinkering a little bit. And I wish I had more time, right? If I was 10 years younger, I'd probably go down that avenue a lot harder.
Well, I wonder if that means like our primary clientele are people who are tasked with content entry.
I mean,
Understand it more,
not,
probably, yeah.
I mean, structured content is different for like different things, like, or not content. I mean, yeah. I mean, there's a lot of content entry, but it's also just like, a content workflow. Like, we've got clients who have lots of like lots less skilled users writing content that they put through a moderation queue and things like that.
That whole workflow is a huge value add.
Yeah.
Drupal is a content management system. It's one of the
Yeah.
best.
And with Canvas, we're almost going to be as good as WordPress now.
Yay.
Oh,
Just give us a couple more years and Drupal will be almost as good as WordPress, is what I think people are hearing in these keynotes.
I like that Mike
My
has a
word.
mean, sarcastic streak.
It hasn't accomplished anything over the last 18 years.
I wonder if like more like Lee, what you were saying earlier, you can just copy and paste Tailwind components. I wonder if like more available off the shelf like catalogs of components that we could copy and paste into our sites would be the
Yeah,
solution.
I think that's where
Oh,
Like
the
imagine
display suite comes in, right? Because you can grab the Bootstrap one, the USWS one, then there's the French government one, and there's um, I think there's a Shad CN and what's the Tailwind one called Daisy UI. Those are kind of available to do that with, and I think they are right up there, almost usable for anyone else, right? They just need to get over that last little hump. Um, and like a lot of things, 80% takes 20% of the time, and the last 20% takes 80% of the time. I think we're hitting that kind of barrier for those things.
maybe what's needed is someone needs to step up to the plate and start producing YouTube videos where they demo these things.
Yeah, I actually spoke to Pierre about that. I did actually offer to do that for him, but I haven't done any in the last year. Um, because a
Have you
couple of the
seen the
guys have quite strong French accents.
Oh yeah. Oh man. I know. And this isn't a complaint, but like I tried talking to Pierre at one of the after parties at DrupalCon, and it was like so difficult, not just the language barrier, but also like the loud bar.
Yeah,
But I was hoping for like a more like, oh my God, I have all these questions for you. Please explain all these concepts to me. And it was like not the right forum for that.
he's quite a a dry person as well. So he's not quite. He doesn't like have the American bubbliness, for want of a better description. You go, "Hey, how's it going?" And you start chatting. He's kind of dry and to the point.
Why can't they be bubbly like me?
Exactly.
I'm okay with that. I like direct people.
Oh yeah, yeah. But yeah, I wandered around. Pierre said he was coming to Atlanta for the last one, and I was like, "Oh, great! I'll see you there." And all I had of a picture of him was the tiny little image in Slack on my phone. So I'm looking at it and I'm going, "Is that him? Is that him? Is that him?" And I went over and started chatting to this guy. I was like, "Are you Pierre?" And the guy was, "Hey!" Shook my hand and stuff. "Oh, it's Pierre." And then he goes, "No, I'm not Pierre." I was like, "Dude, you look like this guy." And I just been talking to you for 10 minutes, right? And the first question to you was, "Are you Pierre?" And I forget his name, but I bumped into him like twice a day for the remaining days of DrupalCon. And every time I saw him, I just pointed at him and went, "Nook," and went, "Not Pierre."
The Drupal doppelgangers.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, once you looked a bit
Um,
closer, it was quite clearly not him. But in a bar where it was dark.
I feel like some of the debate between like the directions that we're going in are over how we do design, whether we start with a design and are implementing that in our project, or if we are designing as we go.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Or if your
Like,
clients even
so
understand what you mean by that.
for the radio station project I'm on now, our client has been like working with a designer in the background that finally passed us over stuff. And it was like four color choices, a logo mock-up, and then like a basic like page with a hero component on it, and like an example of like the menu. But we can't tell like what the, you know, out of those four colors, what should a link look like? What should a
Yeah.
button look like? What should it look like when you hover over it? Questions like this. And so I guess I'm wondering if some of the competing directions between like display builder versus canvas are underlying concepts of like, are you building in place or are you working from an existing complete design?
Yeah, I'm
I
always.
guess.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I guess I've been taking it for granted that I've have designs for the sites I need to build.
No, I get designs thrown at me, and you look at it and go, and like you say, you get this design, something in Figma that isn't actually implementable as they've put it. You're like, "Have you worked on web things before? Have you asked the right questions?" Then you realize how
Right.
much they spent on that design, and it's like as much as the entire implementation. And you're like, "Fuck me, I should be a designer. I could make a lot more." Like I look at a lot of the designs and think there's like 2 days work there. Like, why is this taking you 4 months? Like,
I,
I'm looking at 2 days' work in reality,
I
right?
feel like that's the Achilles heel of a lot of our agency sort of clients is every agency has gone through bespoke design,
Yeah,
and it is probably one of the most expensive things you can do. I also like to think that if I want somebody's input, starting from a blank canvas, a whiteboard to start ideating is one of the worst places to start because
Uh-huh.
we already know what a lot of these things should look like, and it creates argument when you're trying to let somebody have an opinion. When the stupid tangent. When I was babysitting my nephew, he was like maybe 6. We asked him, "So what do you want for dinner?" My wife was going to make spaghetti. "Do you want spaghetti for dinner?" Here's the problem: you don't ask a question when there's one answer. So I just always look back at that. Like you just say we're having spaghetti for dinner, and we have to treat clients in the same way. We have to have um, confidence, almost authority, but at least confidence to be able to say, here's a set of components. Let's do a component based design. Here's our base component library. Here's what a base page layout looks like. Is it going to look like every other site? Yeah, that's the point. You don't want to, unless you're like an art studio who really does need a bespoke design, in which case you're spending money on that. Let's make something that's familiar for your users, that they can move around, that isn't so disorienting because it's so bespoke. Start with a basic set of things, and then let's tailor it to your brand. What are your colors? Okay, fine. We do some base color sets. Maybe we want to have more rounded things, or maybe more sharp things, or more flat things. But that level of variation across a component library is a much stronger starting point, I think, than starting from scratch. And then that can help flourish a bunch of mockups. Now we have things like Figma Make that we can just pop in. Here's the library. Now let's make a page for an event. Let's make a blog page. And it just spits this stuff out. But there's no reason for us to be fussing with clients these days over things that we're just doing over and over and over again.
I completely agree. Yeah, that's the direction that I've been working in. And I think that's what you were saying, Mike, where if you've got multiple projects that are using the same base theme, you get to reuse some of the same like components within it.
Take care, Eric.
Yeah. I mean, we're doing the whole recipe thing, so we're gonna have recipes, setting up our standard, um, content types and display modes and things like that, and all the stuff we have baked into our starter theme. So it really gives us a good starting point, and then we have to communicate with. When we work with external designers, we be like, hey, when our default setup is this way, we can do it that way, but then it's going to be extra work and extra time and money, and then 9 times out of 10 they're like, oh well, we'll just do it the way that you have it, you know yeah. And I think the what the hell are we calling these things, the site templates,
Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be like a starting
yeah.
I'm
point.
still not entirely sure 100% what that's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, like, but that sounds good. You can, like, start off with like some sort of site template, and like,
Imagine like an
you know
event website.
yeah. And I think the whole part where we're charging money for it is bananas. Um, you know,
I
I
think
mean,
it would be good for the person who's producing it to get paid,
yeah,
assuming it's a long-term thing. But that may not be appropriate for site templates that are starting positions. That
yeah,
might be more appropriate for like a product that's made with it.
yeah. And I think, Drupal's always been a freemium, like,
Hmm.
pricing thing where it does a lot of stuff out of the box, but then you want it to do something different that it doesn't but do by default. You have to pay someone to help you do it. Whereas, like, if we're an agency, we can put out maybe we can create a site template. Someone will install it in their thing, and then they'll be like, "Oh, hey, this is great. We're using this, but like we need this other component," and like then they hire us to expand on the starting point. So I feel like, you know, yeah,
Well,
the
this
whole the
gets
whole
really interesting with how DripYard is working because there are certain points where a client of DripYard might request a change, and that becomes available to everyone.
yeah,
Which is
well,
not a site template, that's a theme.
yeah. Um, Yeah, I don't know. I think the whole distribution thing with Drupal is kind of a mistake because it never really worked to just go get the updates from, whatever the distribution was and just apply to your site because you've always, made, you know, dozens or hundreds of additional changes on top of whatever the distribution is, and then you're just having like, then like, oh, and that's like, let's upgrade our foundation. And it's like,
No, you've
well,
completely
we have
flipped
Right.
stuff
it.
built on that foundation now.
I'm
We can't
thinking
just swap it out.
I'm thinking a little bit more about like commerce as an ecosystem of like a whole like
Yeah.
section of Drupal. Like if you're going to use this for e-commerce, here are all the different like solutions that are part of that ecosystem. And so like CRM is a big movement right now for building like group sites. Um, I could imagine a couple other like categories of sites that are feasible in Drupal that could be sort of pre-packaged as something that you start off with.
It'd be nice. I mean, something like that that you can put together in a couple of days and then just hand it off and then have somebody have a wonderful experience with it. I feel like that was what everybody enjoyed from previous versions of Drupal in general. And I don't even know how people did it with Drupal 7 because I started with 8. So how did
Features.
people? Well, yeah, features, but like with Drupal 7 out of the box didn't look great. So I guess you had to use Radix and
Here's
you had to go the bootstrap routes. So you had to
the
invest a bit.
back in the day, jQuery was a compatibility layer. And any jQuery plugin that was available was something you could just drop into your site and it worked. And we've moved away from that, and we haven't really found a good replacement. And so what that means is that we've gone towards this paradigm of Drupal where you can really customize things, but it's harder to get stuff off the shelf and just drop it into place and it works.
I think what I'm hearing from you, Andrew, and from everybody else is that classic Voltaire: "Better is the enemy of good." Like we're
Yeah.
constantly striving for better, but we're not good. We get we or better yet, we have to focus on what good is and do well there before we can strive to be better.
Or I guess the other way of thinking about this is like web development is like an MMA fight. And you either come from jujitsu or kickboxing or whatever. It doesn't really matter. What really matters is not getting knocked out.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
And right now, we're kind of getting our asses kicked.
I think.
But but everybody is. Like I don't think anything is a slam dunk right now.
Well, you take a look at any technology, especially in open source, the survival of that technology is public interest, and especially in open source, but also private interest. Like, who's funding this stuff? Where's the money actually coming from? We have lots of people in the Linux community who maintain projects just because they want to see them survive. It's a passion project. And I think I understand that because I think we all have had our hobbies and we've all been passionate about something. But to expect there to be a permanent social contract for that person, let alone their health to forever be great, it's unreasonable. So I feel like there's a responsibility that especially large corporations, but businesses have to sponsoring and subsidizing the costs of the ecosystem that sometimes they're quite vampiric. They they draw the life right out of it, but they're not really giving back. And I think us in the open source community go out of our way to try to hold people accountable. The private model is you buy a license and you pay a normal cost, and that's how they subsidize those costs. It's very transparent. Look, you pay, you get to use this thing. You don't pay, you don't get to use it. Open source doesn't really have that sort of thing. It's more a matter of like, we really love this thing. Please pay us. We hope.
Yeah, you could hire a shop that is a contributor, or you could hire a
Yeah.
shop that's maybe a little
Yeah.
cheaper but isn't a contributor.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing is like, I think one of the things that's worked really well for Drupal is just that like, the different agencies, compete over who are the biggest Drupal experts,
Yeah.
and who is maintaining the most modules and who's releasing the most modules and who's like, a thought leader or who can convince someone to put single directory components in core even though it's a half-baked idea that doesn't even have a front end implement like interface yet. That sort of thing.
I like SDC.
And I think a lot of people are doing some amazing work present tense.
Yeah.
But if we're going to try to maintain the health of our ecosystem, we need to have newer people coming in on a regular
Mhm.
basis. We need to have companies considering using Drupal as a solution because it's competitive.
I think that sales is the number one bottleneck because if that happened, everything else would like flow from it. If I was able to go and sell $1 million Drupal project, I would go and hire 10 Drupal developers.
The Chattanooga.gov here locally, I found out is a Drupal that was just shy of $1 million. And I was like, I didn't even know that was up for bid. How did I miss that? And it went to some South American company.
Oh,
And I was like, I'd have done that for 650 and I would have
we've
spent ev
won work by saying that we would come under like significantly under government proposals.
and yeah, I would have like and not only that, you'd have paid me the money and I would spend it in the same county that
Yeah.
I'll spend it in the local economy as well. So
from an economic standpoint, that's huge.
Yeah.
I wonder if we just need more Drupal sites, because if you make a couple of Drupal sites and you orphan some of them because you don't want to maintain them anymore, somebody's going to have to take on that or they're going to let it die. And if somebody has to take on that, that gives an opportunity for somebody else to have to learn it and potentially work on it as an intern or something else. So having more sites helps if the
But there
And
needs
people
to be a budget for that. Like even an intern needs to get paid like enough to pay their own rent.
I think that like the marketing of it and stuff is something that the DA should be all over, and I don't think they've ever done anything.
Hey, I saw
Right?
ads on Instagram. It was for Acquia Source though, I think.
Well, have you seen the? I just found out that Pantheon have effectively a CMS now, right? And the idea is you can copy and paste from Word into it, and you can copy and paste from Google Docs into it, and it lays it all out correctly.
What the
Have you,
fuck?
it,
What?
did you not hear about this? It was something that just turned up on an email that they were talking about. So I forget what they call it.
they had it for a little while, but they just made a free tier for it because it was mad expensive, like 350 a month or something like that to just
Um,
publish from Word to your site. And I think you still need to have a site. It's just the ability to transfer it from a Word, Google Docs document and not have to log in.
yeah, something about putting, because everyone work. I'm trying to find the email. Let's see if I
I
can't
mean,
remember
I
the
mean,
name.
you know, at that end of the thing, it's like those users probably would be best off with like Squarespace or something. Like, like I don't think Drupal should be chasing people who have like a Word doc and need a website.
Um,
If they have Word doc and budget, yes. If Word doc and
With a
no
budget,
budget,
they
then
can
no.
hire a designer. I mean, or not be designing things in a Word doc.
Yeah,
And like
that's so summer.
Pantheon accounts aren't cheap these days either. Like with the adding a project, it's like $50 minimum a month, right?
yeah, it might have gone up to 60, if you're new.
Which is not really that's too much money if you just want to like, oh, I want a hobby, like I have a site for a hobby or something like that. When you just throw it up on Pantheon, it's like, no, it's way too expensive. And it's fucking bizarre. Like I don't know. It used to be $25 and it was like I had a bunch of like, oh, I'm gonna spin up a site for this, spin up a site for that. And I was giving them like, $100, but like I got four sites for it and not just one. And none of them had any traffic, so it's not like they even used much resources.
That's the
Yeah,
business model.
that's a different problem altogether. If you cannot even put a blog on it, then that's a whole different problem. But in Florida, there were a couple of companies that are trying to do like the cheaper Drupal hosting, Drupito being one, and the other one is FlexSite, which is trying to be kind of like the best of Pantheon and Acquia, but on a cheaper host on AWS. But still, it's not a well-known company like Acquia or Pantheon, lowering the entry level.
But also, I'm not sure I want to start a business aiming at the low end, right? Just as a business owner, not thinking about Drupal, like, let's make that cheap, do that cheaper than everyone else, and we'll just, um, it's already not hugely expensive. Um, I mean, $50 a month for what you get for Pantheon and things isn't too bad, right? Because it smooths out a lot of the problems of dealing with, your own VPS or something. Um, that's kind of worth the money to pay for. It's when it gets into the thousands of dollars a month that suddenly you're like, well,
Yeah, I agree with that. I
I
think for
mean,
like a personal site or for something that doesn't make money, then like
yeah,
50 is a little bit high, but
yes,
like
absolutely. That
shared
should be on
hosting
GitHub
is like,
pages.
yeah, yeah,
But again, if it's a personal site and you want to put it on GitHub pages, now you're talking it's developers only, right? The people that understand
right.
how to do that. Um,
I've been kind of thinking about like platforms and tiers. So like if I started taking on clients now and I started like I don't know, if I had like a little niche or something of a certain subset of clients, let's say they're all doing events or something. If I'm building features for one client, I could announce that to the other clients of like, hey, I'm ready to go. I can just drop this into your site pretty quickly and easily and kind of do that across the board if I had like a handful of clients. Then it's like they're not dependent on Pantheon themselves, but I can provide the flexibility that they would be looking for in a platform like that. And so if I had multiple clients of the same like niche, then it would be really uh affordable for them to sort of like, if they were receiving benefits from what I was producing for like similar clients to them, I think there'd be a lot of efficiency there.
Here it is. I just found content publisher or something they've got. I'll put it in chat. I didn't even know they had it. It's like I haven't read like Pantheon emails in years, basically, and
Mm.
I think I followed one of the links for some of their AI stuff, and they're talking about new PHP images they're using, and I just kind of had a few minutes to read while I was drinking a cup of coffee, so followed that down. So there's this content publisher thing. Um, yeah, draft to live website straight from Google Docs or Microsoft Word
I
to Drupal,
I
WordPress, and
would
Next.js.
I'd be willing to bet that it's a project that someone came up with that they just acquired.
Quite
They're
possibly.
like,
I
well,
hadn't
that's
heard of
neat.
it.
We have just like snapped it up because they've got millions of dollars of venture capital now. It's like I'm
Well,
sure they're acquiring these little tools.
oh, by the way, Bernardo, I just found out that the local Chattanooga Carter is looking for a new website, and I've got like 8 days to submit the RFP. So
Really? You
yeah,
know who
so
did the current one, right?
yeah, it's an advertising agency.
You mean Carta, the boss company?
Carter, the Chattanooga area rapid transport.
Yeah, yeah, I thought that the current one was actually Bridget who worked on that.
I'm trying to think what it is. Is it Go Carter?
But that is interesting. Yeah, so if I was telling Lee tomorrow the local chamber of commerce is having like a business and why not
Yeah,
a
I'm coming.
hangout.
I've
And
been
we're
a
going.
member of the Chamber of Commerce for like 15 years, and I think I've been to one of those.
So we figure it'd be a good opportunity to figure out what local businesses are doing and how they are actually taking care of their website and why not. And then just having different perspectives since we don't really work at the same company. Me
Oh,
working in the
is
company
that
side.
Bridget from
Yeah, Bridget from UTC is the
Bridget
one.
Hornsby?
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, she built that. I see. Okay, yeah, right. Okay, I thought I recognized her, but I couldn't work it out fully.
So maybe she's dropping it since she has a full-time job or she doesn't like that client anymore. Who knows? But that'd be the person to reach out to.
Oh, I'll talk to Bridget then and see if she's doing anything. Yeah, that'd be awesome.
It looks like that content publisher publishes to WordPress or Drupal or
Yeah,
yeah,
it looks like it's something in between to try and
yeah.
like
I'm
what.
surprised they were listed as a free product. I'm sure they are doing that to try to get ahead of the Acquia solutions and why not? And Acquia Source and whatever, because like they had it for a while and they didn't really care for the free tier.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what Acquia's marketing is, right? Because they always talk about the Gartner quadrants and all this stuff that's all way up in the enterprise stuff. And maybe they make enough money through that. But I think they took 50 million from Amazon and another 50 million from something else. Um, that's one of the reasons they clipped all their professional services division, right? Because engineers are expensive. They decided they're not going to do that anymore, right? They're just the hosting and
It's because AI has gotten so good.
I think in like 5 years' time, there's going to be an enormous amount of work for senior engineers of de-sloppifying an enormous amount of code that's been written.
That's why I'm not working very hard right now. Because I feel like that is coming, and they're going to need people that know what they're
There's going to
doing
be an
at some
Armageddon.
point.
Now, the thing is, in 5 years, all the junior guys that normally, because really what an AI assistant is a junior guy that sits next to a senior guys that works at lightning speed. We still have to check all his stuff, just like we have to check a junior guys. But normally we're teaching those guys and moving them along.
That's
In
an
5 years,
that's an echo
the juniors
chamber.
that become mid-level developers, they're just not going to exist. There's going to be a gap
It,
where,
That's what
it's
I keep
also
saying.
it's also not,
Everything I use an AI for is something I'd normally assign to a junior developer.
yeah.
and it's not
I've
coming
also
up with
kind of
original
wondered
things.
if the development of advanced technology will kind of stall out, if AI will continue to reuse the existing technology of today without pushing it further.
Yeah,
Well, it can't. It has to train on something, right?
We're
And if we're
stuck with
not
Tailwind
training,
forever, is what you're saying?
That's what I'm kind of getting at. Yeah. Like, oh, this is the pinnacle of technology. This is the best it could ever be. We're not trying to use AI to make technology better. We're using AI to spam Tailwind.
innovation is dead. AI takes over.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if you heard people talk about like what's going to happen to open source, right? Because people aren't learning on open source, they're using AI. Certain projects have stopped accepting pull requests because people are AI slopping them all over the place, right? Curl won't take any pull requests anymore because of that. They're like, this is just too much to look at. It's all complete nonsense. People are gaming the system for, points, and yeah, it's overwhelming people. So they're like, well, we're just going to turn off pull requests.
This is a problem.
It is a problem.
I was talking. I forget who I was talking to a few weeks ago about the idea of how AI is quite obviously the graphing calculator sort of thing. You still have to know the math. You still have to be able to understand it. And if you're coming up as a brand new developer, it still behooves you to understand some of the basics of how development works, because whatever AI is producing, can you read it? Can you understand it? Can you understand where it's doing something good versus bad? If you have to debug something, are you just going to keep asking the AI until it comes back right?
Well,
Well,
and
Ralph Wiggum has something to say about that, right?
I was reading into date formats for Drupal and trying to
Mhm.
understand like smart date versus the native
Yeah.
date format. And then I started getting into like the RFC documents for like underlying technical specifications for proposals for how technology should work. Like this is what AI is running on top of. AI is not assisting in helping us define the underlying technology.
No.
And so this is my fear is that we're gonna generate, we have the ability to generate a shitload of examples for our current technology, but our advanced technology is not good at advancing our technology itself.
Yeah. It's just that echo chamber. It's just going to produce more of what we already have, and
Yeah.
poorly at that. It's just giving you the answer it feels is right. And while it might be getting better at doing that, it's still not us. It.
Like, I think HTMX is an extremely elegant solution where
Oh
it
yeah.
recognized that we were all doing these different things and recognized that there was a pattern amongst them and just said, hey, if you all conform to this pattern, we can simplify all of this custom code down to like a small infinitesimal fraction of what it used to be. Like, can AI do that for us? Or do we still need a human to recognize those patterns?
I yes and no is my answer. I think AI will continue to become more sophisticated as we make it more sophisticated and train it and teach it and tell it where it's right, tell it where it's wrong, and then at scale it will be able to produce something. But I still think that our ability to articulate a problem so that way it can try to solve it is still a skill, that a responsibility that lands in our laps.
Mhm.
So I feel like that level of sophistication still has to be us. So I feel like a lot of developers, they still have their development skills, can go a lot further with those tools because they inherently understand how they should ask it to do something. They can break up the problem themselves and then feed little morsels to AI to do bits and pieces. Versus if you have someone that does not do development at all, can they produce something? Sure. Will it be the same quality? Going back to that quality argument and maturity argument, will it be the same quality as that developer? I just don't see that happening, at least not present tense. I think we have a lot of steps removed to get to that point where you could have not even a junior developer competing with a senior developer using AI tools, but a non-developer trying to compete
Hey,
at that level.
see you, Bernardo. Good to
Yep.
chat
Take
with
care,
you.
Bernardo.
Bye.
Um, yeah.
I think it comes back to a maturity issue. The maturity isn't in the AI. It's a collection of all the accumulated knowledge that it's been trained on. And
That's
then
what I was gonna get at.
yeah,
If
yeah.
like whether the decisions that are made by an experienced developer come from the experience of that developer of like repetitive knowledge, or more of the mindset and attitude of what they like their thought process when they encounter an unknown.
Hmm.
Because like I've worked with other junior developers that are coming out of boot camps and they're like, oh, like there's got to be an answer for this. Like someone needs to give me the answer so that I can put it in place. And it's like, no, dude, like you're an engineer. This is an unknown problem. Like do a little research, draw on your knowledge of like what the answer could possibly be, and then do some experiments within this to like come up with like what is feasible within this space.
It
Like if you're asking someone else to give you the answer, you cannot play the role that you are being asked to play right now where you are the one that finds the answer.
so you're touching on something really cool. A lot of AI is modeled after how it is that we might dissect a problem ourselves. You know how we might go through things. Somebody gave me a really good example of how neurons get molded in your brain, so that way you have memories and that way you can process information. So basically, if I say I've got a pegboard and I'm dropping a ball down that pegboard, and maybe a ball hits one of those pegs just a little bit enough to bend it a little bit, from that point forward, that one peg is going to be predisposed. It's going to have a probability that's slightly skewed, and that's your neurons. So as we fire in our brains and basically mold what it is that our memories and our decision making skills are being told what to do over time, we're accumulating a massive machine that is just molding the probabilities of what's going to come out the other side. And I see AI as doing something very similar to this, but with an extraordinarily limited knowledge set compared to a human brain. So it may have the wealth of human knowledge at its fingertips, but it still isn't a human brain. It doesn't have that level of computing power as far as I can tell or see. So if I say, hey, program me this mobile app that can help me track my fitness stuff, asking AI to do that, it's going to be significantly less capable of thinking beyond the scope of that task than a human being can, who understands what nature is and understands some of the nuances of how that might be an experience that a human using that app might want to encounter it and utilize it. So there's so much more nuance that I think that a human brain is capable of, especially a human brain that understands development and design and context, whereas the AI is just picking the answer that feels the most right in its very limited scope.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's going to be the shortcoming of it, and until it's not. Like we take a look at like Data from Star Trek, like this grotesquely complicated thinking machine at in a I guess this is just my personal belief. At a large enough scale, something can replicate organic existence in a digital form. I believe that, but I don't know what that scale looks like, and I don't know if that's achievable in our lifetime. So unless you have that apples to apples comparison where you, not even like uncanny valley sort of thing, but just raw computing power, raw thinking power, until you have that apples to apples comparison from digital to organic, I just don't think that you have the same thing. Is it passable? Is it good enough? Probably in some cases, but I don't think
And
in
I
all.
think if it's deriving from a known pattern that is recognized and accepted, that would
Yeah,
be safer to like riff off of. But if it's riffing off of its own ideas, then it's like untrustworthy.
Doesn't have ideas, but I mean, I feel like people are like, oh, AGI is right around the corner. I don't think that's right, but I definitely think that we figured out part of the brain of what artificial general intelligence would be. Just like our
yeah,
parts of brains have like different purposes and evolved at different times and stuff like that. I feel like the LLMs and the image generators are like could eventually be the part of an eventual brain, but like, it's just one part.
yeah.
So
We're
Just
I want
still
to
just
call
early in
it's
one thing
just
evolution.
out.
it's
Like,
just it's just it's just it's just one mode of thinking, but I think we under appreciate all the different modes of thinkings that our brain does and the
Yeah,
different parts of your brain that are, controlling each other and feeding back into each other and stuff. So
before Teslas and self-driving cars came out, like the primary thing about cars that they were promoting was about being a driver's car, like a
mhm,
Miata or a BMW that like was a good driving experience. And then it went from like that to being like, oh no, you need a self-driving experience. Like the driver experience is irrelevant. It went
Teslas,
from being the
Teslas are
primary
pretty
thing.
pretty cushy. I think they're still all about the driving experience, and Tesla does have like ludicrous mode or whatever else like that. It's obviously not self-driving. It's just yeah.
but Andrew, you're saying there's a different perspective that is being
Yeah, and
explored.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Mike. I just got an EV myself, so I'm kind of excited about some of the things about it. But like I just from the design perspective of like that was like the design, that was the marketing, and then one day it just suddenly wasn't anymore. It was like, no, 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 you don't want to drive. You don't want to drive at all. You want to sit back and read a book while your car drives itself. And it's like this the who is in charge of dictating the experience that we want to have?
I think if you're talking product development, not even just technologies, product development, I think there are two sides of it. One is you're doing market research to figure out what the market has an appetite for. The other side is you don't care about that. You're just coming in and being disruptive and seeing what sticks. And both are valid product design approaches. And a lot of times you're doing both because that's how you break new ground. So
I
I
will
don't
say
know.
with EVs, putting it in like max mode and having it just like dump electricity into the wheels is pretty fun.
Like strapping a rocket on the back.
Yeah, like I normally drive around in eco mode, but then every once in a while I'm like, oh, let's bust into sport mode, and that gives me like 350 horsepower.
It's got to keep the traction right.
So I guess that's like a parallel for like the day and age we're in, where we have this like massive power that we can step on the gas and do some outrageous things. But we also have a hard time launching sites that just have good, simple design.
Yeah. I find we said this before. I find that we a lot of times when we're building things with technology are doing a lot of the same tasks over and over again. And I feel like that is the argument for using things like AI to make it easier on yourself for those highly repetitive tasks.
Well, I mean, we have something for that already. It's called modules.
Yeah.
You create them, you download them, you enable them, and
Yeah. It's like
it's
create
it's like it's
once,
like
use many. Yeah.
yeah, it's like oh my God, AI is gonna come and it's gonna write all the code and like it'll instantaneously write. I'm like, we have that. Like, if you think you can add a lot of code to your project with AI, just see what I can do with composer require. Like, I can,
Yeah.
add millions of lines of code to my project in a
npm
matter of
install.
seconds.
Well, there's a difference there between like you're downloading stuff that is refined. And
Has
especially like
been,
if
yeah.
you install a WordPress plugin, it's designed and developed in a way where other WordPress users at least accept using it. Like it's a usable thing.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised how well some of these WordPress plugins, the actual Ninja Form guys are actually here in Chattanooga, and I've chatted to them a few times, and they've got like three, four engineers working there, and so they're selling a $15 plugin to do forms, and a couple of the guys are on the phone and doing things with them all the time, but they're keeping four engineers paid, right? And I'm like, and it does 15% of what Jacob's one does, right? Of what Drupal web form does. It's just crap by comparison. Um, but there's enough installs of WordPress that need forms that it's a viable business. And they don't make the money from the $15. They make the money from the people who want the support, right? That pay monthly for it.
It's the freemium stuff, you know. It's that freemium model.
I don't know if that's like I don't know if that's something to copy because it's working well or something that's funny to laugh at or like I don't know how to interpret this.
All of the above, in it, depending on how you feel that day, right? And also like disappointed that I didn't build that for WordPress, and I'm pulling in 1.5 million a year, right? Or whatever,
Yeah.
selling the simplest thing to people who I don't know.
Is
The
Drupal
WordPress,
too good?
I help out with the WordPress meetup here as well. I never really built anything in WordPress. I just sort of reached out to the local community and ended up sort of helping out and things. And almost everyone I talk to, none of them, like, one or two of them are kind of developers, ish, and the rest of them are just people throwing stuff together because they want to sell things on their website. Um, we went to when WordCamp was at Nashville because that's only 2 hours away from us. We went down to do that. So a whole bunch of Drupal developers turned up, and I always sit at a table with people for lunch, people I don't know. Right, let's talk to people. So there's one seat left. I'll take it and sit in. And we were chatting, and every single day some random guy on my table was a doomsday prepper with WordPress. A different one every day.
Oh my God.
How does that work? What kind of host do you need for that?
I've no idea.
I guess they probably self-host
Is it air
in their
gapped?
in their
That's
bunker.
it.
Bunkernet.
But
Oh yeah.
I know that Amy June was there and she was looking for some WordPress developers for whatever agency she worked for in California at the time. And her first question was, do you use Git? And 9 out of 10 of them were like, what? I'm like, well, there's the
Oh,
bullshit,
Oh, what?
right?
It's not
Just so
that
you know
hard
what
to learn.
some of the core guys, like you don't compose or install it. They don't, they do everything on live. They just install it on something and off they go.
Oh, it's
That's just WordPress through and
2026.
through. And you're just like, how did that get such an enormous amount of work? And I think it's because someone doesn't know what they're doing, could throw it up for almost nothing on shared hosting, spend $15 here and $15 there, $15 for a form thing and $15 for a theme that looks about right, slap it on and go, ah, that's not bad. But I also feel that, and this is just my personal feeling, also feel that stuff like Squarespace and things are eating them up at the low end, right? As people need a next site and redo it, they're coming off the WordPress thing because it's a pain in the butt to do and just whacking it on Squarespace because they can drag and drop things and put it on. Um, so yeah,
Oh my God. Can I tell you what my least favorite thing recently is?
go on then.
Is how the Pantheon dashboard now on the workflows page has a percentage that counts up, but it always starts at 53% and always counts up to 95%, and it's completely divorced from whatever's happening on the back end. Like it's just they added some code to make it feel like there's like a thing, but now it's stuck at 95%, and if I reload it, it'll be back at 53%. 57 started 57%. Oh my God.
Progress
And then like
counters are just all lies.
I know, and it used to be they used to just have like a progress bar, which like
You just
you
want to
kind of know
flubber.
that it's just like you're like, oh, the pro it's kind of a lie still. It's kind of annoying, so it looks like it's almost done. But like when it's saying it's like 95% done, it's like it sounds so specific, and they completely made it up, and I already
Have you heard
complained to
of
them.
similarly, have you heard of something they used to call the Microsoft Minute, which was
Ah,
when you drag
No,
something from
yeah.
A to B, it would tell you how long it would take. It would say, done in 1.5 minutes. And then it would either be done in 10 seconds or 10 minutes,
it
Hmm.
right? So that
adjusts.
it
Yeah.
was never right.
Yeah.
So
Ah.
we're
We used
getting
to,
close
we used
to
to
the
say,
end of
we'll
our
be there
time.
in a Microsoft Minute. Like, well, we don't know how long that's going to be.
It's when a wizard arrives, sort of thing, when they intend to. So since we're getting towards the end, I did want to ask if anybody had any thing that they wanted to promote or mention or anything like that.
The There are, if you go into DrupalCon, there are a couple of things, right?
Mhm.
There's um, the 25 years of Drupal sort of ticketed evening. I forget what it's called. Um, there's people going to that. They're like encouraging you to go in like gowns and black tie, but they'll also
The
accept
gala,
hoodies.
right?
Yeah, the gala, that's it. And also, somebody, do I still have it up? Let's have a look. Um, it's on my phone. One second. Um, there is the Route ID annual pub crawl, like the opening night. They've got a link up for that. It's been very poor for like signing up for parties this year, I have to say. I haven't seen the Pantheon one at all. I mean, I'm going to sit here and bitch about them, but I am going to go to their party.
As soon as we hear about them.
Are you guys gonna go to the gala?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, I think that's the plan.
I might actually bring my black tie for that, just for a
Is
bit
it a
of fun.
black tie thing? Are people dressing up?
Yeah, they're asking you to, but they're also saying like hoodies are also acceptable.
Tuxedo
Uh,
shirt.
all
Yeah.
I know is I love it's like, we need new developers. We need younger, more casual developers to join our community.
Here's a
We're
gala.
going to have a gala at this upcoming thing. It's going to be $125 to come to. And I'm like, oh yeah, the kids are going to love that. All
Yeah.
these.
Well, they have a ball pit at least. Bouncy castle.
Well, fair
Any other
enough.
promos that you want to give? Local meetups, other summits, camps, anything like that?
What's
I
going
just want
on?
to say it was great to talk to you guys. Good
Yeah.
event today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Discussion.
Likewise. Thanks for showing up and immediately coming up with some really good conversation.
I hope I didn't hijack it. I just kind of
Oh,
went
you're
from
good.
top of mind stuff.
Oh no, a lot of times unless we kind of pick a topic ahead of time, it's just open discussion. I think it works. I've been
Yeah.
to a lot of different meetups where like you'll have a presentation or something sometimes, but yeah. I did want to mention I because I will be in Australia and Fiji in May, and I just don't feel like trying to fit it in later. I'm probably going to skip that month for the meetup, so I've already taken that off the calendar. But otherwise, next one is April 1st.
Okay.
All right. Happy
Yeah,
travels.
yeah, yeah. Awesome. Cool. I'll be in the Slack channel. If anybody has any other thoughts for the meetup, ping there. And otherwise, I'll post the recording and meetup notes
Yes, that's what
afterward.
we need people to watch us
Yeah.
complain about things.
Oh,
I
Awesome.
think I have the same jacket on.
Perfect. There we go. Yeah, yeah. Awesome. Thanks for joining, and we'll see you next time.
night, guys.